Benedict Spence. Good. Oh, God, the moustache is back. Captain Mannering, how are you?
Hello, how are we?
Look at you, all day. Look at it, sat in the study with all the books an afternoon. Let me ask you a question to prove you're a real gentleman, at which Jodie will fall off her chair. When you have afternoon tea and crumpets, do you have gentleman's relish on your crumpets?
I have occasionally had gentleman's relish on my crumpets. Yes, that's the thing.
And do you know what? It's anchovy paste for anybody who's going to make a smutty little joke about that. Also...
Oh, is it? Oh, I thought it was something else. Oh, never mind.
Yes, good. Well done. I'll do the jokes, you do the Conservative commentary. The other thing I was going to ask you was, Alan phoned from Newark. Do you know that Newark's the only town in England that's an anagram of a certain word?
Yes, onanism. That's what that is.
Thank you very much. Benedict Spence, let's start, as we mean to go on, let's start with Cop-Out 29. I fail to understand, and you'll put this so much better than me, how we are infected by a class of politicians and people who seem to think that, yes, there's a problem, OK? Yes, there's a problem, but are there not greater priorities to consider? For people who have just tuned in, and for you, Benedict Spence, Ed Miliband has made a sort of promotional video. This is what he says is his reason for going to Baku for COP29, my friends. Enjoy.
Have you ever played 193-dimensional chess? That's what I was doing back in 2009 at the Copenhagen Climate Summit, trying to get 193 countries to reach agreement. Yes, it's true, I did look younger then. I'm about to go and do it again in Azerbaijan at COP29. But why? Because it's the once-a-year chance to put world leaders on the spot to act on climate change. And at this year's COP, you'll have a British government representing you that believes in doing its bit at home and showing leadership abroad. Everything we're doing in Britain, from Great British Energy to our Clean Power Plan, is about lower bills, energy security, jobs and growth. But if we're going to keep future generations safe from the threat of climate change, we've also got to work with other countries. This government believes climate security is national security. That's why I'll be going to COP29 to play climate chess and fight for Britain.
Jeez, honestly, Ben, please help me out, Benedict. I don't know what to say now.
Yeah, he's a half-wit. That's all we have to say about this. What a great line. You know, climate security is national security.
Yeah.
Do you know what is national security? The border. You know, that would be a great start.
It'd be a start, wouldn't it? Yeah, having some police on the streets or some soldiers or something, having an army. And actually the reality of what Ed Miliband's talking about, because none of us know what Great British Energy is. He talks about lower prices. That's rubbish. There are higher prices. He talks about, oh, yes, no job losses. Well, we know 100,000 jobs are going to go. And I go back to what I was saying to somebody earlier. It's almost as if we're being conned, blinded by this talk of how it will benefit everybody, whilst not actually being told the truth, which is how much it'll cost. It'll make no difference whatsoever, and it's just ideology, isn't it?
Yeah, we have the most expensive energy prices in the developed world. That's not a secret. They are staggering when you compare them to everyone else in Europe and the United States. And people then ask the question, why is the British economy in the situation that it is? Well, there's your answer. You know, that's the great big thing sort of staring you in the face. There are other issues, of course. We don't build any houses or infrastructure, but the fact that energy costs are so high directly correlates with the fact, and everybody listening to this will know, that your bills have gone up, your prices have gone up, your standard of living has become a lot more expensive, and all of that, I'm afraid, you know, as much as people can say, oh, well, the war in Ukraine, yes, that's played a part in it, but, you know, why is that such a problem? Especially when global oil markets and gas markets are being manipulated precisely because of the war in Ukraine to try to keep them down. Why is it that ours are so much more expensive? The answer is because we are paying far too much more, because we are making this transition. And this is the thing here. This is what really irritates me when it comes to things like renewable energy. Renewable energy is not necessarily a bad idea, but there are good sources of it and there are bad sources of it. If you invest in nuclear power, like we should have done, given that we are a world leader in the technology...
Thanks, Nick Clegg.
You can keep your prices down. Yep. If you invest in wind, which is a scam, it has always been a scam. It is ruinously expensive to install. It will never get cheaper, and it is never consistent. Then you get very high energy prices. The other thing, of course, that we've massively invested in, or are trying to massively invest in, is solar power. Now, solar power is not necessarily a bad thing, actually. The technology is getting a lot better. It's certainly better than wind. But we also happen to be in one of the few places on Earth where we get very poor quality sunlight. Literally here, Denmark and the rest of Scandinavia and Iceland are bad places to have solar power. Almost everybody else benefits from it, not us. And yet these are the two technologies that we have decided to double down on. Not nuclear, not geothermal, none of the other things. We've gone for wind, which doesn't work half the time, and solar, which doesn't shine half the time. Phenomenal planning all round.
It's just extraordinary to me. I mean, actually, interesting. Starmer's gone off to Baku. Other world leaders have shunned it. And I was saying something to somebody earlier about Trump. Say what you want. We were all delighted last week, I was. But this is a man who goes, drill, baby, drill, because he's got oil and gas underneath his ground and says quite simply, far more intelligently than people give him credit for, that's our source of wealth. We're going to bring it out and we're going to sell it and the American people are going to benefit. We're going to stop fracking. We're going to stop drilling. We're going to create an idea that doesn't work and doesn't cost any more. And when that doesn't work, we're going to have to buy gas or whatever from somebody else at a greater cost. It's just ideological crap, Benedict, isn't it?
It is. And what should really radicalize people is that the UK could be self-sufficient in energy and have some of the cheapest energy prices in the world.
Wow.
Some of the cheapest in the world. And it wouldn't need to drill for North Sea oil or coal. It could be entirely self-sufficient on shale gas. That's how much we actually have.
I'd frack tomorrow.
Yeah, if we wanted to, we could have some of the lowest prices on the planet. We could have a revolution like they've had in the United States if we went after fracking. Now, there are some issues around fracking. It does cause some pollution. Of course it does. But ultimately, if you want to bridge the gap, if you want to have clean energy that doesn't produce any kind of pollution that's worth talking about, you need nuclear. That takes time. If you want to bridge the gap, you use fossil fuels to bridge that gap, to keep prices low and to subsidize the building of that nuclear technology. As you alluded to, should have done that 10 years ago. Thank you very much. But we could do it now. That's the thing. There's nothing stopping us doing it now.
Well, actually, if they're talking about the future generations, why don't you do it now? But I go back to what I keep saying, and some people don't like it, Benedict, don't really care. There are things in this country, and if Trump's election victory should have told politicians anything, when all of those people, they weren't interested in abortion rights, they weren't interested in ideology in schools, they weren't interested in anything other. They kept saying it. I repeat, they kept saying economy, they kept saying price of gas, price of groceries and immigration. You will find millions of people in this country feel exactly the same. Talking about millions of people in this country, let's move on to my next favourite subject today. A Church of England bishop. The Right Reverend Bishop of Newcastle, Helen-Ann Hartley, has called for the Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welwoke, as I call him, to resign, calling his position untenable. This is a damning report into prolific child abuser John Smyth. Turns out that John Smyth abused 132 plus young kids, and that old Welby, who's known for pontificating about everything other than his own house and his own behaviour, had known in 2013, which is a full 5 years before Smyth died, and he's done absolutely nothing about it. But he says, I couldn't resign. I'm interested in ongoing work of building a safer church here and around the world. My point to you is this. Why are so many in the church very eager, willing to point the finger, but not very good at looking inward in the mirror, my friend?
Yeah, the Church of England has decided that it wants to commit suicide. It is my interpretation of all of this, which is that it has decided to double down on causes that, as you've just pointed out, actually are not of any interest to the average person, certainly aren't the sort of thing that are going to bring in any new converts anytime soon. And they're doing this at a time that congregations are dying. They're trying to be trendy in a bid to try to make themselves relevant. And I think Justin Welby is genuinely very concerned, actually, about the future of his church, of his flock.
He should be more concerned about his job, shouldn't he?
Well, he should be at this moment in time. I suspect he was thinking that this might never come out. It's very rare, actually, that people in the moment sort of hold their hands up and go, oh, I should have done this at the time. It's time to go. They wait until they're caught out. And then once you are caught out, I suppose you try to double down for as long as you can. But I mean, it's also worth pointing out, of course, that this is partly why the Church of England is so keen on the idea of mass migration. It's nothing to do with, loving thy neighbour or anything like that. It's because actually most Christians these days live in sub-Saharan Africa. They want to literally import them. That's how they're going to have a congregation going forward, or bringing in persecuted Christians from the Middle East. That is how they interpret their future as being in this country, which is really concerning, actually, that therefore they are wielding this sort of influence on the debate. But on this particular issue, I mean, when you have so many sort of senior clerics and prominent clerics, I think, beginning already to call for the resignation of the Archbishop, it's the sort of thing that you just can't sort of hold off on. You know, it's not like the Pope. He's not infallible. The Archbishop of Canterbury.
But the problem for Welby is, and to me it's a bigger issue. It goes back to what we were talking about last week about what's happened in the world, is that if you spend... I mean, he was such an ardent anti-Brexiteer. He was so fervently against anything. Another anti-UK person, in my humble opinion. Now, it's all political correctness. But when you get caught out and you've spent your entire time being the judger, it's more difficult, isn't it? Of course it's more difficult because they turn it on you. I think Justin Welby's in a, frankly, I'm delighted, in a terrible position.
He's in an untenable position, but you can also understand, I think...
They'll probably close ranks, won't they? Probably close ranks.
They'll try to close ranks because, as much as anything, as the Catholic Church learned, once you can pin something on somebody, then the floodgates begin to open, and then actually you have to apologise for absolutely everything, because everything will come out in the end. You can't keep a lid on these things indefinitely, and I think that they will be looking at, well, what happened to the Roman Catholic Church around the world, in Ireland, in North America and elsewhere, and thinking themselves, at all costs, we must avoid this, because the Church of England is not as robust as the Catholic Church. It doesn't have the financial resources.
Let me read you this from Davy. Let me read you this for Davy Rees. Jezza, I was forced into Roman Catholicism from a very young age by my hypocritical father, and by the age of 10+ years I realised all religion was rubbish and have been against it ever since. Some of the perverts within religion that have been exposed over the years back up my opinion that I've had for over 60 years. I'm now 74 and I turn my back completely on it. I think the Church has many questions to answer, but if they try, as you quite rightly said, to almost just fabricate a story and gloss over this, they're going to be in real trouble. Now, don't look at me, Ryan, because I'm not going to talk to you about Trump. I'm not going to talk to you about the Archbishop of Canterbury. I'm not going to talk to you about Putin. I'm going to talk to you about something else. Apparently, Labour's idea of growth is to screw businesses with taxation, is to import migrants, all this sort of thing. But the biggest one of all is that Labour and Angela Rayner are paving the way for the introduction, ladies and gentlemen. This will really improve productivity of a 4-day working week. Your thoughts, Benedict Spence?
My thoughts are that there are some people who can get as much done in 4 days as in 5, and they tend to already be doing that. And there are some people for whom as little work as possible is desirable, and they will take advantage of the situation. I think that the sort of companies that work well on 4-day weeks are probably already on something like that, or probably already on some sort of flexible thing. What is not needed, I think, is a state-mandated 4-day week or a right to a 4-day week. I think that the best companies work out what works best with their employees, and I think that bad ones that are destined to fail, or the state, if you like, will try desperately to impose these things, and what you will see is productivity going down. And I think it's one of those things that sounds very nice, and it sounds even better if you're somebody who's trying to do as little work as possible. We had this also with the whole thing about working from home, and I say about that as I say about this. The smartest companies will work out what works best for them. They do not need the government telling them what works best for them.
More in the nanny state. Before I leave you, it's a Movember moustache again. It's very impressive. Have you literally grown that in 11 days?
Yeah, I have.
God, your back must be a hairsuit. It would take me 11 months to even look like I got some bum fluff on my chin.
It is the only sort of alpha male trait that I have, is that I can grow on top of my lip. Not at the sides, nowhere else, just here.
That's it's just literally, not the beard, it's just... And what are you going to do with it? Are you going to twirl it? How long is it going to be?
Well, I don't know. A couple of years ago, my father did something the same, and he did, for all the days in the following month, he did a different character. So maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll dress up and, you know... the chap from Queen, maybe somebody from Bomber Command, who knows?
Goodness me.
What do they fancy me dressing up as? Actually, no. I could go really badly wrong.
I'll ask Justin Welby. No, I'm joking. Listen, fantastic, mate. Listen, thank you for coming on. We love you being on the show. The amazing Benedict Spence, Conservative commentator, supporting Movember, a great cause, by the way. Cancer cause, Movember, men growing moustaches. Apparently, Ryan, are you going to grow a moustache? Oh, I've got one already. No, don't shave your beard off. Jodie, and I'm joking.